This medium moose billet is getting pointy and worn because I'm choosing different facets. So eventually I'll have to grind that down a little bit. I just learned how to work with billets so I don't have to do too much grinding. When they're straight, you can generally turn them around, but the area that curves weird, generally don't use as much. So, I'm making Schneiders lately. I just did this North Preform. I'll finish probably notching these together. And normally I would work on the hammerstone on this. But I thought I haven't done much just large antler percussion in a while. These probably weren't used ever, or hardly ever, if at all. But the reason why it's good to use them, if you want to keep your practice up with the antlers, because it's similar, right, in feel. It's just heavier than a whitetail or mule deer or elk on the skull a little bit, so it'll keep you honest with your edges, because it works pretty well the same. So I'll look and see how to orient this thing. It's so square, it really doesn't matter, I guess. Although there's more cortex here. So it's probably a little bit longer this way than it is here. But if I'm making a North Preform, as I work around this cortex, it might actually be a little bit shorter if I did it that way. I don't know, we'll see. I'll decide here pretty soon. It's weird. I do so much hammerstone work, it's kind of weird to start on something with the antler so big. It's pretty imperative to just work on the lap at this stage. Okay, this is a punky area, so maybe this will go this way, because I can take this in for my tip. I haven't been hitting this really hard on flakes like that, or as hard as I need to. Just gotta take the cortex off. Little thin lean platforms like that with antler can usually catch my overstruck that a little bit, but they can work pretty well. And just come around to get the cortex off. And sort of just this is too steep. That'll just hinge if I hit it there, so I'll just do a little trimming. Okay, looks like I'm gonna have to just chip this down to get through that stuff. This is kind of a weird area to get in and hit that. Let's make this our tip. Turn this over, try to... Well, I think I knew that was going to be ugly, but I had to just get in and take that down unless I did careful hammerstone trimming. And I just so turned over, so I'm trim this down a little bit and come down. I've decided that this is my tip. So I've got some width. Helps to just turn it extra low, and then build it back up. At this stage, sometimes I can hold it in the hand or work on the lap. Well, that's deeper than I thought. Well, it's a good thing I made that my tip. So just shorten it a little bit, or else we're going to get too droopy. I think that'll be enough. If you get flat, you can use a broad facet on a low platform. It doesn't have to be a perfect platform, just a little bit low. Oops, missed to the right. It's too bad that we gotta just keep shortening it down a little bit to get under that. Kind of smushing it down to support that through that limestone. Okay, good. That's about done. Excuse me. It's helpful to be able to work with edges turned one way or the other at a certain stage. So you can flatten one side and then do the other. That way you're not having to use edge to make, your position to where you can thin one face. That way you get a lot more options on wider platforms that you can do some quick thinning with. Try to use the point. Get in there. Moving this platform up and over just a little bit. There's some little pyrite in there. Sort of moving towards the sharp area of this for the more isolated platforms. Right in there. See where I just hit? The more ratty your billet gets, the more ground your platforms have to get. But I haven't ground this thing in a couple of years. It'll smooth up if you kind of work from heavier platforms down to the finer ones and don't abuse it. Oops. Hit my phone. This hornstone wood this would percussion pretty well with different fruit woods too, but it would be slower going on the thinning. And it's, you know, it's a big enough size that it would work, but as you get down smaller, you'd want to probably switch. So if like off the corner, we've got some heaviness here. We want to try to be a little bit stingy. We're going to have to get rid of that cortex. I still haven't gotten over to my buddy's house to get his copper tools. I haven't forgotten about that. Told you guys I was going to do that, so I will. Yeah, the square area. I'm just trying to think about the way to use the smallest amount of length loss to get in. At this point, I don't want to get it too thin off the back. I want to have enough thickness for other platforms. So as I come back here on areas in this limestone or whatever, if I have to clean that, I'm going to want platform options again. So I'm probably going to do a little bit more work up here. Let's billet down. Let's use this whitetail billet. Once again, I haven't dressed this thing. I was using it here, and it was very flat, right across here. It got too broad and too flat, and what happens with that is you'll actually wear little concave planes in the billet. And as you strike, you'll end up wearing up higher. And so then the energy that you get into the inward, and due to the angle, you have to have such a flat swing and such high speeds because you're only catching the top of the billet. So then I just turned it in my hand and I'm working off this facet. And it probably would be a good idea to take this off at some point because the curve in this billet would make it very difficult to nap like this. And I like the length of the handle so I can get that speed. So I just work with the billets in different holds so that I don't just wear them down super fast, and they last a long time. Some of the woodland billets that I find that are very flat generally aren't beveled flat. They'll be a little bit steeper. And it's possible that some of those have worn flat because they're used as punches too. There'd be a lot of different ways you could rawhide tie a billet onto a punch. So I wouldn't have said that when I was only doing percussion napping, but the more punch work I do, the more I think that it'd be pretty difficult to infer formal billets are only billets. So it's worth keeping an open mind on that. But there's certainly some formal billets out there, I'm sure. Oops, that was a little heavy. That's not a good platform, but I can pinch so I don't fold it down. Now, at this point, I do a lot of little edge manipulation. I'm not driving long flakes, I'm just keeping things smooth. I'm making it to where the platforms aren't going to have to remove too much thickness from the edge. You can cause a lip flake, maybe do a little isolation so I'm creating a later platform. Sometimes you'll see an area where you're like, well, I'll just get a little flake there. Just a thin, smoother one to cut that ridge down. It's thin and don't really have to trap. Just in, get a clean flake off. Look what I did yesterday. This thing was super wide and nice, and it was a very nice piece of quartzite, and I was making a nice, like, Simpson. And then I had two more punch flakes I had to do, and then it got worse, and I messed it up. Look at that. Oh, you don't think I messed stuff up? That's the worst mess up I've done in a while. I should have stuck with the percussion on that, because my punch, I was using an Antler punch. It was too small, so I was getting too speedy with it, and that stuff is so grainy. You need a slower, broader platform, and I just really messed up. And a little limestone in there too. That platform I missed earlier there didn't help. The more you miss and you cause damage next to the edging areas, it's good if it happens like there on the tip. You don't want to make a habit of that. See, I just scrunch that down because I need this flake to go across. Oops. I totally missed that. I hit way over here, and then I hit once again to the left. We're turned this way, so I can't really... Probably the thing to do is just to cut my losses and take a little bit more length off. Hopefully this holds together. Yeah. Well, that limestone goes through. Steep hammerstone flakes are good. One thing when I do my copper video is what I won't do is a lot of that trimming. Because with copper, all I'd have to do is take the carborundum abrader, and it wouldn't matter what bumps or anything were on there. I'd be able to just thicken that edge, and I'd just look for, places to hit. With the Antler, the platforms are a little sharper to go straight in, and it's helpful to do that trimming with the hammerstone so you can create those angles on the edge, thickening angles. This is going to be a little bit of a deeper flake. It's good to kind of start at the corners and leave a little bit of room here in the bottom, like I said, to clean up and thin in. Now, I kind of had my edges turned so now I can come back and get in through this corner. A lot of the guys who live far away from the hornstone probably worked a lot of blanks that were traded out just like this. Although this one probably wouldn't get put on a boat and sent anywhere because of the quality of it, but... Clean edges, just kind of in, drop it down, commit, bring the speed up, and then just back off. Don't trap when the edges are that positioned well and that low. And you don't need platforms, you just need edges that you know that you can hit. Okay, see, then we did that series there. So now when I trim up little thick areas and then start move back down, I've got everything to where this plane is pretty clean. Hopefully we won't end up with any pyrite speckles in the middle. I just won't make this thing really thin. I'll leave it just with a nice little body on it. I'm hitting stuff that's not, that I could fix, but I think I can get away with, and you just kind of learn to, like, it's a little too heavy up there, that if I give it just a little, hit it in just the right spot, I can get the flake I want. If you make everything too perfect, then you lose, you end up losing more width or length or whatever. So you have to just change your approaches as you finish, and be more picky about your platforms. Or else, one, you spend a ton of time early when you don't need to. And also, should have ground that a little bit more. Also, use more size. See, nice and smooth, and then we'll just do a little one there. Teeny blender there, get one here, and then we'll start probably from back at the tip, turning this down, coming through here. And then at that stage, depending on what else we run into, we might just have to leave it be and put it in the preform pile. Also, something that I did when I was learning a lot of napping is work in different rocks to the same point. You sort of get less precious about each rock if you get in a rhythm and just get one billet going and do the same thing. All that little tiny edge moving I'm doing. Oops, that. If you get a little crushed flake comes off, just trim on it a little bit, make sure it didn't do anything bad. Looking at it, getting everything even, taking these tiny little percussion flakes. You can chip thinner edge stuff if you learn to do all this little faceted trimming with a billet rather than pressure flaking. See those little blending flakes that I'm doing? If this is too fast, I'm not to chip fast, but if it's too fast, I'll sound more like a munchkin, but you can put it on like 1.5 speed. Okay, see how our edge is pretty straight and even? It's going to be a tricky area because that limestone goes all the way through. Okay, that cleaned into that bad flake I did. I'll kind of just have to come on down the edge and even trim this stuff in. I'd wish that I had more thickness here to get through that limestone, but I'm going to have to just probably leave that and come back and thin from this side. This flake isn't going to be great, so then I'll have to clean through the other side. Oh, I did better than I thought. I caught that one just right. Kind of up. I don't know why that one didn't go. Okay, I'm going to have to do some width eating up here so I can turn and come back and clean through that spot. Teeny flake to get a teeny ridge. Oops. Got to turn my billet now. Okay, if I can't hit that, I don't know what to say. Okay. Okay, I've got room to get one platform there later on. And that'll be about done up there. And kind of a short smoother. That junk got a little bit more width there. This is the stage where I pull the preform straight into my hand. Back off, not trap, high speed, flat. And get hopefully a little one right through there. Nice. The speed on that was really fast. The abrasion is crazy necessary to have it the right amount. This is not an ideal position. There's a teeny bump right here. I could move that over, but then I'd have to trim this. And this is a platform, if I just went one extra too much of a grind, then that would lip off and that wouldn't work. So I just need to give it a little. That's what I needed, just that little teeny flake right there. And if I had ground that too heavy, that would have just folded that edge off. The biggest hindrance to people that want to transition, that are, fairly proficient copper percussion ampers and they want to switch to Antler, is that they usually do pretty well one, you usually see them use the abrader just like they would their carborundum, and then they'll work on the lap. And they'll, you know, generally have over abraded their edges, and it works to a point, and then edges start to get thinner, and the braiding becomes so important that you don't overdo it. But I mean, it's for early stages, it's a lot faster. This is, if I hit this with the antler, it's going to pull that off, so I just need to give it just a little trim with the hammerstone. Just a teeny flake here. Okay. This is going to be an issue. The good news is our edges are pretty thin here. So if I get one flake to start my notches up through here and just a teeny trimmer, then that'll keep us clean on that limestone spot. I don't know why that didn't go. My percussion work on some kind of work used to be probably on average better because I did so much of it. I have to turn this down to come back even for a little flake like that. This is a stage where if I mess one up, it'll be kind of hard to recover. Okay, now this will just be one tiny one, and then we're pretty well done back here. I don't know if this one's going to snag up on the bottom side of that, or if I can try to kind of push it down. Oh, good, it got through. I had enough flint on this side. If I would have hit that with a little flake right to the middle, it probably would have stopped, but I had enough. Flakes stop when they break, and they do it for different reasons. One, if you have a pressure, if you're only napping backing off your edges and you're building platforms to have to get to the point of your finger support, or if you have something in the surface, then the flake is going to generally stop there if it's a thin edge. And if the flake has enough strength on one side but not enough on the other, then a lot of times it'll help it carry through a problem area. It's rare that this hornstone has got, the hornstone that I got from this guy has all been really good. This one is uncharacteristically, has a few issues, but it doesn't bother me because it'll just give some character if I get something made out of it. So maybe let's we have one little hung up flake right here. So let's just maybe trim that out, and then this video is probably like over 15 minutes. So let's get this. Just a little, there. did a teeny step. Maybe now that we got one here, we can come in and get one right there. There. Okay. The main issues now is just couple blending flakes here. Get rid of that messed up spot. Get a nice even radius for symmetry on the bottom. And then I'll punch notch it. I'm going to be smaller than this one. And this is about as thin as I like to go on Snyders usually. I ought to have enough balance in the area I want, but okay, now here is the stage where you can do a little shearing and a little bit of edge work as you need to set up platforms. And because of this limestone, in this area, I'm probably going to have to lose just a teeny bit more length, get a flake across here, which is probably going to step in there somewhere, and then I'll probably just have to pressure flake in that limestone because there's not flint to carry an edge for the billet. Okay, that's a good stopping point because otherwise it's going to slow down now. And we've already done the Snyders video, so hints for this video once again, as I'm unsupporting the flakes on the right edges, and I'm mindful that if back edge support is going to be hard because of the radiuses coming in, as I pull in, I'm pulling into my hand. That'll keep bending. If the billet catches the platform higher on one side and it's releasing and starting a crack, then either the wrong support on the back edge or any amount of thumb pressure, the slightest amount of opposing pressure from the thumb and the fingers will cause that to have an irreparable crack on the platform edge, which is doom usually on material like this. I very rarely just straight up break them. Usually when I mess them up, I put a crack that I can't fix in. And it's just generally carelessness in the platform and me not being mindful with the support. And then also when I'm up here, I'm doing the same thing. When you see me take those aggressive flakes along this angle, I'm getting away with it because I have my angle established, the platform positioned to the correct height, and then I'm hitting high speed straight in. And there's not bending because I've got this sucker. Some of the things I'm doing, until you do a bunch of it, it's hard to emphasize because my hand looks like it's just there, but I'm putting considerable force into pulling the preform in a straight line. And the hardest part about people that are strong and have good hand-eye coordination and they're learning napping is that they can start to thin big bifaces fast, but when they get to a point when they're thinner, they haven't managed in their head with their strength that you have to use those subtle things to keep the preform straight in and not bend. Because they're strong. When they grab stuff, they're squeezing, and when you squeeze, it's hard to train yourself to pull the preform in a straight line. So to reiterate that fact, and then also how to get around problem areas, how to save thickness on the bottom for options out as you do your thinning, using the radius to thin early too. So hopefully that will reinforce things that I've mentioned in other videos for direct percussion with Antler tools, that maybe this will bolster those videos if I wasn't as clear, and say it again. I think it's helpful to just repeat things because I see the same issues again and again. So that's probably, almost 30 minutes probably. So we'll just leave it be there.